Robert E. Lee was a Virginian who opposed secession, but did not believe the Union should be held together by force. He was offered command of the Union forces at the beginning of the Civil War, but chose not to fight against his home state, Virginia. During the Civil War, Robert E. Lee was the leader of the Army of Northern Virginia. While leading the Army of Northern Virginia, he defeated the Union Army at the Battle of Fredericksburg. Following is a reenactment of Robert E. Lee discussing this battle.
God knows we didn't want this war. It's thrust upon us, and when I look upon that flag, that wondrous flag down in that valley here at Fredericksburg on this cold December day, I know that the very men that we have to fight are those men. A lot of those men I trained, sir. A lot of those men are my former soldiers. And here we are up at Mary's Heights and overlooking the sea of blue that's down there. My God, 80,000 men. And they're going to come up that valley that a chicken couldn't live on that field. A chicken could not live. General Longstreet said, no one can make it up that hill yet. Those brave men, our friends from across the river, they're going to try it. And when they come, I can see it as if I saw it from the future. The call will be coming, and on my left flank with the Irish Brigade, I can see that flag flying. And to my horror, I look over, and on the great wall, much like this wall here, that great stone wall in Mary's Heights, I see the same flag, except this is the Confederate Irish Brigade. And brothers will be fighting brothers. My God, how terrible it is going to be. I have several stories, but there's one I must tell you, sir. One I must share with you. It dealt with after the first barrage of Union soldiers and looking down and seeing the smoke, because it's extremely cold, one of the coldest days. In fact, tonight the angels and the fairies dance in the sky. And on that night, men would freeze in their own blood in the water on that field. And the cry rose up from that field, water, water. And no one was allowed to go across that great divide, that stone wall, that breastworks they had. But there's a young man by the name of Sergeant Kirkland, 19 years old, young man, Christian man. He heard the cries, he could not be contained. He went to his captain and said, those men are laying there dying, can I take them water? And the captain said, no, sir, you'll surely die if you cross that wall. He said, if I die, it is my Christian duty to do so, serving God and those men. He refused to give up, and he would not be contained till he went all the way up to the general. And General Kershaw finally said, young man, go at your own device and your own demise, and may God go with you. And he went down, and his friends knew what he was going to do, and they gathered water from, I believe, if I remember right, it was Widow Stevens' well. And as the word was given, they gave a salute and fired their weapons as he crossed over. And as predicted, you can imagine that Blue Army seeing this young man, thinking he was there to take maybe the clothes, maybe to take the shoes, taking supplies. They aimed their weapons down and fired at him. But God works in mysterious ways, and as the smoke slowly meandered over that field on that cold December day, it started departing. They saw this young man. He was on one knee, and he was holding a man that was his former enemy as he gave him water. And the Union officer, I remember looking at Union officer over there, he saw what was happening and said, "My God," he got on the breastwork and started waving his hat, saying, "Don't shoot, there's an angel amongst us, there's an angel amongst us." And it went all up and down the line, and the Confederates started hollering, "Do not fire, do not fire." And that young man for an hour and a half was given time to take care of his former enemies, brothers, fighting brothers, yet given one last act. And there's another story, sir, that you must hear. And you must tell your children's children to realize how terrible this war was. At Fredericksburg, there were 4 brothers. 2 of them wore gray, Confederates, and 2 of them wore blue. You see, before the war, they lived in Pennsylvania, and the father, being he was a grave digger, he rather poor, so he sent his 2 older brothers, 2 older sons, sent them to New Orleans, and they were to work, send money back to take care of the youngest. And the oldest brother pledged his life that he would always take care of his younger brother. Well, when that war came out 4 or 5 years later, the 2 that was in the area of New Orleans chose to wear gray. And the other 2, youngest one from Philadelphia area, and I can't remember the exact place, chose to wear blue. And on that cold, cold day in December, they met, unbeknownst to each other. And after the battle, with all the men laying dead and dying, a scavenger group was sent out. And the 2 older brothers that wore gray were sent out into the field. And they said they was taking shoes, ammunition, anything they can, being pinned down, but they was taking as much as they could. When the oldest brother happened to turn over one of the soldiers, and to his horror, it was his younger brother. And he couldn't believe that. He thought, what if my bullet did? And he ripped his jacket and screamed and ran straight to the Union line begging, "Kill me now, kill me now." But all of them realized it was the cries of a madman and let him come in. And the surgeon and the chaplain wrote in their diary, said, of all the things we saw, we cannot forget the pitiful pleading of that man who felt he had killed his own younger brother that he swore to take care of. And after the war, 1 son went home and 3 left upon the battlefield. There's no glory in war, ladies and gentlemen, no glory at all. Fredericksburg was said to be a great victory for us, but it was a defeat for our nation, because one flag that I fought under, and I'm very proud, I yielded none of my love for that flag, for that is the flag of my father. You see, I am the son of revolution. Harry Lighthorse Lee, that was my father. I followed that flag. For 36 years of my life, I served that flag. Until Virginia left. And I had to follow her bidding, where she went. And I remember my words on that day. I remember them as distinctly as if it was yesterday, for it changed my whole life. I said, though I love this Union, I love Virginia more. I cannot, I will not, I dare not draw my sword, save in her defense. And she calls me, she begs me, she pleads with me. She says, Virginia, Virginia. And it led to a terrible destruction of our nation that we must rebuild. But we must never forget the high cost of freedom. God's blessing to you all.
And on April 9, 1865, General Lee surrendered the Confederate Army to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. At the end of the war, he urged Southerners to accept defeat and reunite with America when some wanted to fight on.